I'm walking down the hall, and there's this man in front of me, and so I said, excuse me, sir, would you know where the fundraiser is? And he said, no, I came to pick up my daughter at an athletic event. And I said, well, he said, what are you doing here? And I said, I'm selling books. He said, oh, let me buy one. And I said, that's a sign. And so it was a really good experience. And actually, I must say that the things that I've tried have been, for the most part, pretty good experiences as far as selling books. I mean, I sell them on the line. I'm waiting at Staples for them to print a flyer for an event I'm doing, and somebody will say, oh, look at that flyer. You wrote that book, and they buy it from me. So it's that, you know, I haven't sold thousands, that's for sure. But and it's nice because you get to meet people and
Right.
talk about your book.
Right. So you would say it's a mixture of the social media, the technology, and the hands-on work that you've been using to promote your book.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I have not really got into the technology as much as I would like to, but that's my next plan. I've also incorporated software onto my computer, and I send out a newsletter. So I use that is really actually, I think, what makes marketing your book today a daunting task, because
Yes.
with the internet you have so many options. There, not only do you have newsletters, email, there's YouTube. If you do a video, and you can do a video of yourself and put it on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and all the others that I can't remember the names of. It's you look at it and you say to yourself, where do I start?
Right.
And it's like everything else. You start with one thing and then you move on to the next. And that's basically what I've been doing for, it's about a year and a half now.
And what's wonderful about all those are they're free. I mean, YouTube,
Yes.
Facebook, Twitter, it's really networking and marketing on
Yes.
a shoestring budget.
Absolutely. And going to a book expo
Yep.
is a very interesting experience because you really get a flavor for what the whole publishing industry is about.
We were both there this
Yes.
past May. It was very exciting, wasn't it?
Yes,
Yeah.
I was so excited that in the beginning I looked around and I got so overwhelmed that I just wanted to sit on the floor for a while, take a deep breath and say, okay, where do I start? Yeah, that's, I think, the overwhelming feeling I've had since I published the book is, where do I start?
Right.
What should I do first? And I'm getting there, little by little. Here I am, talking about my book.
Let's talk about rejection. I think there's another misconception out there that a writer writes a book and it gets published and they live happily ever after. But I read recently that Catherine Stockett, the author of The Help, her manuscript was rejected 60 times before it found a literary agent and went on to become a bestseller. I mean, so as a writer, you have to be ready for that and be very tenacious, right, and really believe in your product.
I think that's true. Jodi Picoult went through the same experience, being rejected, and I can just visualize all of those people who rejected her, you know, gnashing their teeth at this time. I think that, yes, the first thing that you have to do is you really have to believe in your books and love your books. You have to love your story so that when you talk about it, people really feel that this is a story I want to read. And then you are going to be rejected. The first rejection that I got was really not from, because I haven't sent out to agents or publishers yet. That's the next thing. But the first rejection I got was from a kid. I did a library presentation, and I said, did you like my book? And she said, no. And she said, it's too scary. And I thought, wow, don't you read all those vampire books? I mean, this is scarier than that. So, and the feeling was, you know, you feel that little rejection.
Course.
But then I thought to myself, not everybody likes mystery stories, Linda. Get over it. And I think that it would probably take me about 3 or 4 years of getting letters of rejection before they slowed me down. I think you just you're right, you have to be tenacious. Most of the things I've ever done in my life, I've done through very hard work and keeping my nose to the grindstone.
Exactly.
I've never felt that I'm particularly, I don't know what word to use, blessed or talented. I think I'm talented. I think I'm capable. But I don't think I'm, one of these people who is just going to burst onto the scene. I'm
But you
going to
never
have
know.
to plow onto the scene. So,
But I agree. I think it's very important for writers out there to know that, if you want to be a writer, it's not a matter of writing things about things that are trendy or about things you think that will sell. It's really about writing the things that you're passionate about, whether it's mystery novels for young adults or thrillers or memoirs.
yes.
It's all about being in touch with yourself as a writer, and that will translate, do you agree, to the reader? through the
I
work.
think so, because I've been told by people in the profession, because I have gone to conferences, look at your competition. Go to the bookstore and look at your competition. And my competition, by and large, in the young adult area is fantasy
Right.
and the Twilight series, vampires, stuff like that. I can't write that. Harry Potter, it's just not my thing. And my thing is to write about mysteries where I have a young heroine, and I'm very invested into my young heroine because of the time that I spent with teenage girls. And she represents to me a healthy, clever, fun-loving, humorous outlook on life. And this is what I love, this is what I do. And and there's not much competition for me in that area. So I have to believe that there is a market for this and that people will turn to it and not just stick with the fantasy books. I had a librarian tell me, this was an interesting comment, he likes my books and he says, I like them because they're short. He said, the fantasy books that are coming out are 500 pages, and when kids come to the library to take a book out, they don't want to read something that's 500 pages. I thought that was an interesting
Yeah.
observation on his part. So yes, you have to really stick with what you love.
Now, when do these books take place? Is it modern day?
Yes, it's absolutely modern day. The Madonna Ghost, do you want me to tell you a little bit?
Sure, please.
All right, the Madonna Ghost takes place on Fire Island. And Fire Island, to most Long Islanders, is a beloved place. You go there, and it's like going to a different planet because you don't see cars, and it's a lovely beach community. Well, Annie is my main character. She is a complicated girl. Unlike Nancy Drew with her strawberry blonde hair and her little blue roadster who had almost the perfect life, Annie has situations that she has to deal with. She lives with her aunt. Her aunt's name is Jill Tillery, and her aunt's a New York City police detective. She lives with her aunt because her mother suffers from alcoholism and she's in and out of rehab, and her father works for the State Department and he is oftentimes not home. So I've given her interesting people to live with because she will then have connections to worlds that ordinary teenagers would not have.
Right.
But they are also very challenging people because she doesn't want anything to do. She's very angry with her father because he's never there, and she's upset with her mother. She doesn't even know how to deal with that. It comes up in the book. So she goes on vacation to Fire Island with her aunt, and she meets a boy, and she falls in love, and it's a very sweet romance. And the first day that they are there, they go out sailing with their host, and he tells them about a ghost story. And Annie is intrigued with ghosts, of course, as any teenager would be. And the boy, whose name is Ty, he says to her, I've seen the ghost. And she looks at him and she says, oh, you're kidding. And he's, no, if you don't want to see the ghost, which is, of course, more of a come-on. And so they go to a local historian who's quite a character. Her name is Alice. And she tells them all about the ghost. And we get the background of the ghost. And she says, we can see the ghost. I've seen her several times, and I know just exactly where she appears. And she always comes on nights when there is no moon. So they investigate the ghost, and you get into the ghost story. And then eventually what happens is Aunt Jill, who secretly is working on a case, disappears. And Annie at first is not too upset because her aunt disappears every once in a while, but eventually she gets very, very concerned. And so while they're trying to solve the case of the ghost and the disappearing aunt, they uncover a very dastardly plot that impacts on national security. I can't tell you any more than that because it gives away the end of the book.
Now, did you know when you were writing this book that there would be another book in the series, or did you see this originally as a standalone book?
I think that I always wanted to redo Nancy Drew. I think I always wanted to come up with another story. And what happens when you write these stories, I don't know about you, but I get my inspiration from almost anything. I'll tell you, I think this is a funny little story. I have 3 dolls in my living room. One of them is a doll I had when I was a little girl, and so I have them clustered in the corner, and I have this decorator gene. And when my son comes to visit, he looks at the doll and he says, "Mom, that doll is creepy. That doll is creepy." And so, of course, that translates to me, "Oh, an evil doll. I'll have to find a story for an evil doll. We'll have to do something with that evil doll." So when you're writing a story, other ideas come up. And
Yep.
so as I was writing The Madonna Ghost, the idea for Girl with Pencil Drawing came up. Do you want to hear about Girl with Pencil?
Sure.
Okay, Girl with Pencil, Annie obviously goes back to Manhattan where she lives with her aunt, and she wins a series of art lessons. She goes to the first art lesson and she sees her instructor engaged in a violent argument with the gallery director. And she kind of interrupts the argument and goes on with her lesson, and during the lesson the instructor says, "Can you help me get out of here?" And so she says, of course she's going to say yes, and she helps her get out of there, and she says, "You owe me the story, what's going on here?" And she says, "Well, I think that my director wants me to do things that I don't really want to do." And then she says, "I have to take care of business." Well, the director is found murdered.
Oh, I don't know if we should hear any more, actually, because it sounds like it's an intriguing story.
Okay, all righty.
Leave everyone in suspense.
Okay,
Okay, sound good?
Okay.
What I like to do is when I do interviews with authors on my blog, I like to end with a particular question, and maybe we'll do that today too.
okay.
Oprah has famously said that there is no such thing as luck without preparation and a moment of opportunity. Would you say you agree or disagree with that with regard to your experience?
I absolutely agree. I think that you have to be prepared for the opportunity that comes up. I think you always have to take your talents and the good things that, the good qualities that you have and develop them. That's what life is to me. You should be developing yourself. And when that happens, when you're busy working at something that you love and that you care about, and you're giving to the community, the human community, the opportunities come up, and then the luck comes into play.
Well, Linda, thank you so much for
Thank
coming
you,
and
Dina.
spending time with me today.
It was wonderful. Thank you.
Again, it's the Annie Tillery Mystery Series. There are 2 in this series. We have The Madonna Ghost, and we have Girl with Pencil Drawing. They're on sale on Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com. They sound like a wonderful story. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you again next time on The Thinking Writer.